Welcome to my home garage. Today we got a 2008 Civic Si with the 2-liter K-Series motor. So we have a belt squeak and we've replaced the belt by the tensioner today. See if that is an issue with that or if it's the aftermarket belts. If not, we're going to have to go into further diagnosis. So right now, because I need to replace the engine mount on the vehicle as well, we're going to use a jack, put a piece of plywood and prop up the actual oil pan on the vehicle just to take up some of that pressure, and then we're going to disconnect the mount. So the first step, what you want to do is you want to disconnect this torque mount. So it's a 17 millimeter nut. I just loosen them all by hand. If you want to check it for cracks, check the mount for cracks. This one's in good shape. This mount here, so you have an actual ground here. It's a 10 millimeter nut. Do not forget to put this ground on. Put it in a place where you're going to see it. So what I like to do is I like to put it inside where the torque mount goes so they don't forget. So now we have two more 17s to remove. Two 17s, two 19s, and a 17 if I'm not mistaken. So we're just going to loosen them all up first. Two. You notice the engine move now. So all the weight is on the jack. So we can actually pry the jack up now. So the mount is kind of binding in here now. So you want to get it to where it's loose by lifting up the jack. And there's your bracket. As if you can see, right there, I don't know if you guys can see that. That's where the mount's been contacting, because this mount's collapsed enough that under load, you get the mount bracket contacting the mount, because this mount is kaputsies. So now you got two more brackets. You got a bracket that's right here, three 14s, this bracket here, and then you got a 17 millimeter down there and a 17 millimeter down here, and then the mount is ready to come out. It's like a pain, like there's no room, but there's actually just enough room to get your socket in there. A swivel will do the trick. Here's one edge mount. You see how they get corroded? You gotta clean that up, lubricate it before you put it back. Okay. Now your engine mount should be able to come out. It's tight. You just keep working it. You will get it out. If this is in the way, or any of your lines, which is what looks like might be in our way right now, what you can do is lower the engine now. You lower the engine down, and now might have enough room to pull this baby out. There you go. If you look at the new mount, look at the gap between here and here. You're not going to put that mount in just yet. We're actually going to, I changed my mind. I'm actually going to remove this bracket to make it easier to go back in. Okay. Now the brackets, it looks like that. So we'll put that in after. Okay. So while we're here, we're actually going to replace this pulley we're going to replace the tensioner, which is... I'm going to have a better look at it. We may be able to remove the tensioner without removing it. I'm going to have a look. Yeah, we can remove the tensioner without taking off that bracket. As you can see, there's 3 bolts, 1, 2, 3. So we're just going to do that. First things first is we have to actually remove this bracket right here with this pulley. Pretty much the best tool to use is just a straight combination wrench. Here. Get that belt off. All right. There we go. So what we do is you just move the belt out of the way. You don't want to completely remove it. So what I like to do is I tuck it behind somewhere to keep it tight. You just keep it there and it'll stay out of the way. Just a bracket for the AC line. Just loosen this one too so it has some movement for later. Now we can remove this bracket. Done. That bearing's shot. We're going to replace that bearing as well. And now we can remove this tensioner. I think it's only 2 bolts holding it in. One here. There's one tensioner bolt. Put it here. You gotta remember the one that goes through the actual center of the tensioner as well. This baby right here. So it's 3 tensioner bolts holding it on. 2. The long one is the center one. And then 3. There's your last tensioner bolt. Now your tensioner should slide out. Just under the cover. Don't tighten any. First get them all on. Torque for the tensioner, all 3 bolts, is 16 foot-pounds. So we're just gonna new pulley. We'll change it on the car, make it easier. This just goes like this. Torque on those is also 16 foot-pounds, so just keep your torque wrench handy. $14mm. If you can hear that. All right. The idler pulley is also 16 foot-pounds, so you just want to give it a little torque. So I'm going to get my new tool that I bought, slide it in here. Now you're just going to take all the tension off, slide your belt as you go. Release the tension. Just double check your belts on your crank. On your AC, you can feel everything from here. If it's on everything, you're good to go. Remove your tensioner tool or 50mm wrench, or 14 if it's an OEM unit. Now you should be good to go. Okay, so now we have 2 new pulleys, new belt, new tensioner, all new pulleys. So we'll see how this goes. We got a new mount coming right now. Here's our new mount. I believe it'll be difficult to put this mount in without removing this bracket, but I'm gonna try regardless. Never know. Let me see if I can do this. I don't know if everyone can still see. What you can do is slide it like this. The goal is to get it underneath these lines, so just finagle them. Is that a word? Finagle. It's gotta go under the AC lines. It looks like it's not gonna fit. Pry the motor up a bit. See if we can get enough room. And there we go. See? There's always a way. Okay. So now we got our mount in. What we want to do first is we want to tidy up these bolts. I just use a steel brush, tidy up the threads a bit, and then I put some anti-seize on these bolts, and that'll help it from getting corroded any further. So there we go. There's one. Get your other bolt. There it is. The other mount bolt, same thing. Kind of just gotta get your hand down there. Okay, there it is. Okay, once you got that in there, you want to get those bolts started. You don't want to get them all the way tight because you want to connect all the brackets before you do that. Okay. Alright, so you might have to remove that bracket that's connected to this little bracket so you can get these bolts in. And these bolts are just these 3. Those 2 go in there. Those 2 go in there, and this one goes inside towards the fender. This is the last one you need to line up. Just have a look at it. Go up and down. See where you need to be. I need to move the engine a bit. It will move. You're not. So we're just gonna snug these up. Just snug them up. And you just watch your engine and you want to bring that up or down. Remember, we tightened all these up a little bit to make sure they were threaded in. Double check these bad boys. Now we gotta tighten up these. So now all your mounts are back in, except for your torque one. But we do have a bracket to reattach. This bracket right here. And it just sits, it only sits one way. It's got like little notches on them. And all it does is hold the AC line. And it tucks behind these ABS lines. And it actually has a little hole for the AC, the ABS line have a bracket. The bracket just, let's put this here. Once you get it snug, there you go. Okay, now you remember, you got your ground. Do not forget that. The car will have tons of problems. Hondas are notorious, most cars are, for bad grounds. Tons of vehicle issues, computer problems. Get that ground on, make sure it's secure. Good. Next step, your torque mount. It always goes with these markings facing up. So just get it in there. What you want to do is you want to lubricate your bolt in case you ever need to go back in. Get them hand tight on. Torque mount. At this point, you do not want to have the jack under the vehicle. AC lines. One. And this one over here that you removed earlier. Okay. Now we just double check everything. Everything's tight. Nothing's damaged. All the brackets are back where they belong. Okay. Give it a start. Whoops! Now if you take a look at the gap, between the mount and the engine now, it's much larger than before. So that other mount was collapsed. It might not have been totally collapsed, but it was on its way out and it would bottom out sometimes, and that's why you were seeing markings on the actual rubber insulator here when this bracket would contact. Now we got no noises. Everything works. Let's turn on the AC.